Okay, thank you. It's my great honor to speak as the first presenter of the second session. The title of my presentation is the Repowerment Beyond Empowerment. I'm not sure you have heard about this concept, repowerment. It is of our own making. KDI school faculty members, we made this new term to describe a new phenomenon or new trend of governance mechanism. So let me very briefly will explain what this concept is all about. There are only 6 slides in my presentation. It's very concise, but including the page slide. So there are only 6 slides. Okay, let me start. Well, we are living in the crisis era of crisis of trust. So let's think about very paradoxical 2 curves. The first curve is increasing curve. That represent the amount of energy, amount of the time our public officials are putting into their work. These days, more and more, so many public officials are putting more and more time in their work than their predecessors. So they are working harder and harder. It's an inevitable trend, I think. Another curve is very paradoxically is declining. The second curve is people's trust in public officials. So what do you think of the cause behind this very ironic 2 curves? More and harder working curve, but declining pattern of people's trust in public officials. So, well, there must be so many some causes we can think of as the mechanism behind this phenomenon. But we want to suggest so one question. That question is then who is accountable for the social and public problems? There are many answers. One of the answers takes some kind of failure approach. Well, we are failing because of this market failure, or we are in this challenging addressing issues because of government failure. But we thought, well, these 2 failures are not enough. So let me introduce 2 paradoxes. The first paradox is titled accountability hole. In other words, citizen failure. So citizens oftentimes they fail to work as a responsible people for society, and worse, they refuse to participate in the policy process, even if they are invited to work and to participate in the policy process, they refuse because of, well, opportunity cost or opportunism for many reasons. The second paradox is titled, named accountability black hole. In other words, so much responsibility is concentrated on government. See, in other words, there are too much unrealistic expectation of government's accountability. In other words, the expectations is so often highly inflated. So, well, can government really address this issue? Can they do this? Can they handle this burden? So this study is an attempt to answer this question, and this study is designed to explore not new theory, but a new lens. So we collected existing theories and practices to form a new framework, conceptual framework that can help us facilitate our discussion and enrich our discussion practically and theoretically. So there are some similar concepts. First, obligation. Well, it is more about some legal and ethical duty. Liability is more about monetary obligation. And there are 2 very similar concepts, responsibility and accountability. Of course, we are very familiar with the first concept, responsibility, but accountability is very unique because it assumes two stakeholders, two actors, as either principal or agent. So principal agent, this relationship is more concretely conceptualized in the terms of accountability. That's why we have chosen the term accountability as a part of our concept. So very interestingly, the framework we want to present today can be summarized with this term, 4CA. The first CA is acronym for collaborative accountability. Second CA is civil society's accountability. It encompasses individual and collective citizens and civil society organizations, including the press. And the next CA represents corporate accountability, so nonprofit or for-profit, and in the market system. The final CA represents civil servants accountability, so central government or local government, even the public institutions. So interestingly, these these concepts can be summarized as the term 4CAs. So the idea, core ideas of 4CA is very simple. All actors in a society, they are working as both principal and agent. So the civil society, corporates, and government, these three actors of society, they are working as principal as well as agent. So let me introduce the 4CA model. So it is basically 3x3 matrix. There are two dimensions. The first dimension is principle. As you can see here, the first dimension is principle. The empowering, those who are in need or those who are empowering. The second dimension is agent, those who are empowered, who are accountable to fill the needs of the principles. So in each dimension, you can see the exactly same three actors: civil society or citizens, corporates and market, civil servants working for the government. Again, civil society citizens, corporates in the market system, civil servants in the, working for the government. There are three actors in each dimension. So basically 3x3 matrix. In total, there must be 9 cells, but we combine some similar cells, so there are 7 concepts. As you can see here, first, self-accountable citizenry, economically accountable citizens, empowering governance, and so on. So that next slide will detail, we specify what each cell is all about. Okay, this is exactly the same table, the 3x3 matrix consisting of 7 cells. Let me introduce the contents one by one. The first one is named self-accountable citizenry. So people, we, citizens, we are accountable to protect ourselves. It's inevitable, it's an unavoidable fact. So, well, for example, public health or our individual health, we are accountable to ourselves to protect our health. So self-sustaining and self-protecting. And responsibility to community. As we have heard in the previous sessions, for example, PSM, public service motivation, this PSM is not only for the public servants, but also for everyone. So are we really well prepared to exercise this PSM? And the next one is responsibility to nature, natural environment and future generation. As you know, SDGs, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, is a prime example of our obligation or to protect the nature, and we are saving our resources for our future generation. So this is the concept under the name of self-accountable citizenry. The second cell, economically accountable citizens. So we are also expected to contribute to our healthy corporate ecosystem. So we are expected to work as a responsible employee, as well as we are expected to function as a responsible consumer. So you may have heard the concept ethical consumerism. Ethical consumerism is a name for the group of citizens who are purchasing so-called ethical brands. So ethical consumerism is one example. What about prosumer? So responsible prosumer. Prosumer, you may know, is a summation of producer and customer. The example of prosumer is YouTube.com users. Every day we enter YouTube.com. We not only consume the product, we also produce our own product, so that we can upload on YouTube. So we are working as a prosumer, right? So and next, socially accountable corporates. So corporates, individual corporates and collectively, they are expected to be a responsible employer. So when we expect this concept, you know a very familiar concept, CSR, corporate social responsibility. So corporate social responsibility, CSR, has been for a long period of time. CSR has been used as a very powerful vehicle for their advertisement and their marketing. So these days, the concept of CSR is expanded more dramatically to CSV, creating shared value. It was invented and declared by the guru of the management, Mark Potter. So CSV, in a nutshell, CSV is kind of some balancing act. So we want a balance between economic profit and social equity. So we can make a social enterprise that can benefit both social equity and economic profit. I'm honored to tell you that our dean, Professor Yu, he's also a part of very big, valued social enterprise. The sole mission of the social enterprise is to help the poor and those who are challenged. So it is a new trend in both the private sector and public sector. And next, green business or green economy. Well, you may have heard the GSCM, green supply chain management. GSCM is a new trend in the public and in the private sector, where they pursue the new manufacturing process that has less impact on environment. So the GSCM is a new trend. And next cell, sustainable ecosystem or sustainable ecosystem. So we hear very often this concept these days: fair and transparent operation and competition, and free trade, something like that. Further, symbiotic partnership. Well, symbiotic partnership is that usually in the market system, in the individual corporate, whenever it becomes more competitive, it tries to force their opponent or rivalry out of the market system. Well, the result of this kind of annihilation of opponent or rivalry is just collapse of the market system, collapse of the industry. So when we think of considering the interdependence of the individual corporates, these days more and more corporates, they are pursuing co-prosperity by considering the interdependence.
Professor Lee?
Yes?
You have 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Okay. Thank you so much for a reminder. So next, empowering governance. I don't need to spend much time in this concept, empowering governance, because we are very familiar with this. PPP, public-private partnership. But the focus of this concept, this framework is this cell, repowering governance. So we know that the power existed or stands from the people. Then why do we tell we are empowering? Well, power existed in the people. It stands from the people. So we have to return the power. So that's the concept of repowering. So in detail, well, government can help corporate responsibility, corporate the accountability, and government also can help citizens accountability. And government can work as a platform, as we have heard in the previous session. Government can work as a platform. In doing so, government can better help citizens and corporates attain and meeting their own accountability for society. The last cell, team government. So government, well, there are so many different types of department and ministries. They have to work together to better serve the citizens. They have to work as a team. That is a team government. All right, this is the last slide. We can compare these two concepts, empowering and repowerment. And so using metaphor, empowerment is a concept where we let citizen corporates roll and letting governments steer. But under the concept of repowerment, well, we can let the citizens and corporate roll and steer, and government, we can concentrate more on building a new boat and better boats. So that is the concept of repowerment. So based with this in mind, well, we can expect, we can complement the existing government 3.0. That is the name of open government. As we know, there are many limitations of government 3.0. So why don't we complement this government 3.0 by inviting new concept government 4.0 as government as a platform. Okay, this is the essence of the new framework of 4CA model. Thank you for your attention. Thanks.